Tim Wynde es uno de los compositores más importantes de la Gran Bretaña de hoy. Ha tenido más éxitos que peces en el mar, pero sigue siendo una figura elusiva. Desde su muy bien publicada lucha con el liricista Solomon Homerton, Wynde ha mantenido un perfil bajo y raramente consiente a dar interviews. En este documental raro les vamos a revelar quién es Wynde: el hombre, el mito, el amante, el soñador, el escritor, el londiniense, el visionario.
You don't call yourself a pianist, do you?
I don't know, as a matter of fact. It's funny that you should say that. No. I do actually, play myself, as you've just, as you just heard. But when recordings are done, I don't play any of the instruments at all. I'm not a performer in terms of music. I mean, I sing and I act and I dance, but with the piano, I tend to leave that to the others.
¿Cuáles son sus influencias principales y qué música escuchaba cuando era chiquito?
Pop music, that's all I wanted to do, and that's all, I'm still a huge fan of pop music. I mean, I saw people like Cliff, and like, many people from my prep school, we just wanted to be Cliff. He looked great, he's one of the best singers, let's be fair.
Well, he's endured, hasn't he?
Yeah, they don't get any, sort of better than Cliff. He was our Elvis. I like to say that because, it is kind of true, I think. There wasn't that kind of choice. There wasn't so many bands around then, you know what I mean? Skiffle is there, yeah, but my biggest loves, then as they are now, are pop and jazz. The thing is, my parents were both huge classical music buffs. And, when one is small, and, that kind of thing is playing in the house, it's in the blood for life. The same, with opera. So that was more, an osmosis thing. But it was always going to, kind of enter into what I was doing, because the main sort of purpose was to mix all of the influences. I loved classical music, I still do. Opera, I love jazz, and I love pop. And I hope, that ADBC, is, a nice kind of mixture, of all four of those. Well, to be honest with you, the story I had for quite a while, whether I was going to turn that into a stage play or even a novel, I hadn't properly made my mind up. But I can tell you where the first idea came from. It actually came from a song I entered into the Eurovision Song Contest called Noon Till Night. I mean, I can play you a bit of that. And that just goes... and the lyrics were something... making love in the morning, making love from noon till night. And that didn't get anywhere. I didn't know of any other, artist or writer that had basically chosen the innkeeper as his main point of view for the nativity story, which I thought was, fairly odd, because I was thinking, well, he's an important character.
Back talking, street walking, mumbo and jive. I don't think I'll get out of this town alive. I'm just a man, I'll do what I can, making my way down in Bethlehem.
There's so much emphasis, on all the other main players. He may have just been, overlooked.
¿Usted cree que la figura del tabernero es tan importante como la figura de Cristo?
Not as important as Jesus, obviously, but, he is, I say, he's just as important as the other characters, which is why I chose him, as my pair of eyes for this piece.
Because I understand you originally wanted to film the piece on location in Israel.
In Israel, yes. Yes, and we ended up in Teddington. I was actually told I had a 2-hour slot, Christmas Eve, I believe it was, the year I can't remember, I don't know when that actually went out, and that got shorter and shorter and shorter and ended up being 28 minutes. I've worked, in sort of TV since, and I understand, that's the way, quite a lot of things work out for people. You're given, something fairly kind of generous and, kind of worthwhile for this piece, and, end up, with actually, kind of virtually nothing.
Ha trabajado muy de cerca con Solomon Homerton durante muchos años. ¿Por qué terminó la colaboración?
I used to work with him. Yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly, sort of pleasant story, but, he wouldn't mind me talking about it. But it's just, I'd been teamed up with him, if I'm truly honest, back in the early days. And we were given an office to basically come up with a hit. We kind of got on. And we wrote some things, one of which was the making love till morning thing. But to be honest with you, I didn't really write with him pretty much after that. But we got into a legal sort of commitment where we were asked to do this piece. And originally he was on board. I told him, what the deal was. He wasn't interested. So, to be fair to him, and he wouldn't mind me saying it, I wrote the lyrics myself.
Hablemos de la relación entre Solomon y usted. Terminó muy mal. ¿Llegaron a darse puñetazos?
It got fairly, kind of, sort of heated with this, with this idiot. I mean, even as far as he actually threatened to sit on the tapes at one point. Because he wasn't paid enough money, so we thought.
To sit on the tapes?
Sit on the tapes, yeah. Because he had the master tapes, because all the arranging and stuff was done with him. So he had the tapes. So, he had me by the, by the what's it.
And is that why the show went out in spring?
It did, which was because all that had to be sorted out before, the thing, could basically air.
I suppose for a Christmas show going out in spring...
It was,
It's not getting
who's going to be interested in that? I mean, Solomon's, a great, lyricist, but he just didn't write the lyrics for this piece. That's the deal.
I don't wish to dwell on the question of Solomon, but Solomon and Maria Preston Bush became involved.
Yeah.
And you had been involved with Maria Preston Bush.
That was a long time ago, yeah.
Did that happen during the making of the programme?
We got together slightly before it, I'd say.
You and Maria?
During the making, I would say so, yeah.
But by the end of ADBC, she was in a relationship with Solomon Homerton.
That's right.
Is that part of the breakdown of your relationship with Solomon?
You can't let these things get in the way of business, as my father always says.
¿Usted cree que este percance le hace valorar a los lyricistas menos? ¿Qué importancia les da?
It is basically all about the music. The music carries, the music travels, the lyrics don't. I guess I've always sung, and I've always loved to sing, so it was only natural, that I would take the lead with this piece. And the songs were written for me as pop songs originally, so that, they're all in my range. Well, back then, I mean, most theatre that had any kind of music, always featured dance, so it wasn't odd, that there was dance. I'd never danced before that. But I've danced since, and I loved every minute, to be honest. There is jazz dance, which does feature in the show. I mean, I now know what that is, but I didn't then, I don't think. Everything else would be pop dance. I don't know what rock dance would be. I was kind of separate them into two different beds, one being the 5/4 jazz and one being 4/4 pop. Well, that piece was fairly important because it's the first time that we see the Tony character. So there's a lot of storytelling in that one song. I had worked with him in the theatre. I think he'd done hair. I think he'd been involved in hair. I can't even remember his name now. But he sings his part, as well as, kind of acts it. So, great value, that guy was. And he sings it so well. I've always written my vocals fairly high, because, I mean, I sing fairly high myself, so for this piece, which was the... And from what I remember, he comes in with the... something like that, isn't it? Or... Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of high.
¿Cuál fue el génesis musical de la canción Tony's Challenge? ¿Puede explicarnos cómo le llegó la inspiración mostrándonos esos elementos con el piano?
Tony's Challenge is just based on a very short riff, I guess is what they're called, which is in A minor, which just goes... which wasn't played on the piano, it was actually played on the guitar.
What's going on? Has the innkeeper been summoned? Tony wants to say something.
Innkeeper!
And would you call that rock?
I guess that would be rock. I'm not a big expert with rock. I mean, pop's more my thing. But, yeah, I mean, that's a kind of rock.
What is rock?
Riff. I'm not so sure. I mean, I think rock is loud pop, I guess.
Is it the repetition that makes it rock, or?
I just think it's all basically volume. Now, there's a lot of experimenting done, and say the rock guitarist would say, well, hang on, that, you know, that works for what I'm doing, maybe. So he would take this short piece, the play it on his rock guitar, and, you know, we'd all say, yeah, that's fine, you know. I mean, my son's very fond of rock. I listen to, you know, some of his tapes now and again, but, you know, he leaves them over here when he's here for the weekend. But I don't, as a rule, you know, have rock in the house. That came from a short ballad that I'd written, I think in the late 60s, which started off as just being a fairly sort of simple verse around these two chords, which I've always loved, which are sort of Satie-esque type chords, though. You know, you've heard that kind of thing, you know, a million times. But it's just that whole sort of like... which, you know, works really well off.
So I close the door as only a woman can.
Cuando escribió esa canción, ¿tenía alguna voz en particular en la mente?
My own voice. Yeah, so I opened... There, isn't it? I opened the door as only a woman can. Yeah, that's in my range. And all I did was just basically give it to her for her to sing. You know, that's what you do in this business. And she's a really, really good singer within her range. You're talking... I mean, she's good around here. Once you get past that D, you know, you can kind of forget it, I think.
¿Qué ingredientes hay que usar para componer una gran balada? De hecho, ¿qué es una gran balada?
A ballad is basically your pop song slowed down. Usually in 4/4, you know, Bacharach, you know, would have it, you know, as a sort of bossa nova, you know, where things, you know, kind of jump around with a sort of a...
There must be more to it than simply slowing things down, though.
I think that's all it is.
El tabernero cuestionando a Dios es obviamente la pieza central de A.D.B.C., una canción cargada con dolor y angustia. ¿Usted ha cuestionado a Dios en alguna ocasión?
I wouldn't have said while I was sort of recording and writing this piece. No, I mean, you know, I was quite young and, you know, one doesn't, you know, kind of question those kind of things then. You know, I certainly have done since, you know, like any other man, you know, you kind of, you know, you question many things, you know, why you don't live with your son.
La canción es un reto vocal. ¿Cómo se prepara emocionalmente para la performance de este tipo de performance?
Well, you know, you try and put yourself in the kind of situation that, you know, your character's in order to be true. You know, and that should be the way with any great art, I think. Any creative process that doesn't drain you in any way, I think you're fooling yourself. because you're not giving, yourself over to it. Yeah, sure you feel drained after, you write a great tune.
Looks like my star has gone out tonight. I feel so small, now she's gone. She was right, now I was wrong. Old King H ain't gonna show. Christ, any fool would know. I think about her in my mind. Wanna touch her all the time. When I pray to God above, even when I'm making love.
If you listen to that song, you can hear a real, reggae, deep sort of reggae influence there that you can only get, from, keeping your ears open, I guess.
I don't know if this is an apocryphal story at all, but did you record the vocal stripped to the waist?
I don't know. I may have done. Don't be dismayed by fashion, and don't be led by fashion. I mean, if you want to do, a piece, and you want to perform that piece in a rock opera style, then just do it. Trailblazers, I would say, are never fashion victims. So just keep that in mind.
La próxima semana en la zona de arte hablaremos con el hombre al que algunos llaman el nuevo Cary Grant. Discutiremos su aproximación al arte del actor cinematográfico, la leyenda, el activista político, el amante, el actor, el americano, Steven Guggenberg. Y ahora, Falcon Crest.